Scroll through your phone contacts right now. You probably have hundreds of numbers. But if everything completely fell apart tonight, how many of those people could you actually call without hesitating? If you were born anywhere in the 1980s, the data points to a terrifying reality. That number is rapidly approaching 0. You're officially part of the loneliest demographic alive right now. You're squeezed between raising kids and managing aging parents, yet somehow you've never felt more entirely alone. But here is what nobody's telling you. This isn't just a midlife phase, and it's absolutely not your fault. There is a highly specific, invisible psychological trap that only the 1980s generation fell into. A brutal collision between our analog childhoods and today's digital reality that has systematically destroyed our adult friendships. And until you recognize the 3 exact forces quietly deleting your social circle, that crushing feeling of isolation is only going to get worse. To understand how we got here, we have to look at the crushing daily reality of being an the 1980s baby right now. You are the ultimate shock absorber. You wake up, manage your kids' chaotic schedules, navigate a demanding career, and somewhere in between, you get a text from your aging parents needing help with a medical bill. You are the definitive sandwich generation. Everyone needs something from you all the time. By 9 p.m., the thought of initiating a text to grab coffee or jumping on a FaceTime call feels less like a joy and more like climbing Mount Everest. So, you retreat. You double tap a friend's Instagram post, maybe send a relatable reel to a dormant group chat, and call it socializing. But deep down, you know it's empty calories. You grew up memorizing landline numbers. You know what it feels like to show up unannounced at a friend's front door, to kill hours in a mall food court, to experience friendship as a purely physical, deeply present connection. You were the very last generation to experience a fully analog childhood, only to be thrust into a hyper-digital adulthood, where convenience quietly, ruthlessly replaced community. You keep telling yourself that this isolation is just a byproduct of this specific season of life. You whisper the universal midlife mantra, I'll reach out when things slow down, I'll make plans when the kids are a little older, I'll get my social life back when work isn't so insane. But let's stop lying to ourselves. You've been saying, when things slow down for half a decade, things aren't going to slow down. And here is the hard truth that flips everything you think you know about your loneliness completely upside down. You think the problem is a lack of time. You think you're just too exhausted. But sociological data actually shows middle-aged adults today have the exact same, if not slightly more, leisure time than adults did in the 1990s. Time is not your enemy. The terrifying reality is that the physical architecture of where we were psychologically programmed to build and maintain friendships has quite literally been wiped off the map. Sociologists call it the third place criteria. Not your house, not your office. A low-stakes neutral ground where you could just exist. Think back to your teens and 20s. You had the mall, the diner, the neighborhood block. You didn't need a perfectly curated itinerary or a calendar invite sent 3 weeks in advance. You just showed up. Those spaces gave you friction-free friendships. Today, those third places are dead. They're gentrified, monetized, or require you to drop $40 on overpriced appetizers just to sit down. We replaced physical hangouts with group chats and traded spontaneous connection for scheduled maintenance. And your brain is violently rejecting the upgrade. You were wired during your crucial developmental years to bond through shared physical presence. So when you try to maintain deep friendships purely through an endless volley of texts and memes, it stops feeling like connection. It feels like unpaid admin work. You leave messages on read because replying feels like just another draining item on your to-do list. But the death of the third place is only the first trap. The second force quietly deleting your contacts is a modern disease called hyperoptimization. You are the very first generation pressured to turn your entire adulthood into a productivity hack. If a hangout doesn't serve a highly efficient dual purpose, like a joint playdate for the kids, a networking coffee, or a strategic couples dinner, you cancel it. We have been conditioned to feel intense guilt for simply doing nothing. But true, deeply rooted friendship requires doing absolutely nothing together. You don't have the mental bandwidth for pointless fun anymore, so you starve your friendships of the exact oxygen they need to survive. Yet even if you manage to carve out a free hour, and even if you found a place to go, you run straight into the final, most brutal wall. The emotional tax. When you spend your entire morning regulating a child's meltdown, your afternoon putting out fires at work, and your evening navigating your aging parents' complicated healthcare portal, your empathy tank doesn't just empty, it shatters. You're completely touched out, talked out, and needed out. By the time the weekend hits, you don't want to grab drinks. You want to stare blankly at a wall in total silence. You are actively isolating yourself as a biological defense mechanism against severe emotional burnout. But here is the dangerous catch. Isolation doesn't actually recharge you. It slowly rots your psychological resilience. And right now, the specific way you're trying to protect your peace is the exact thing destroying your mental health. So how do you break out of a psychological trap that has been quietly building around you for 2 decades? You cannot magically resurrect the 1998 mall food court, and you certainly cannot pause the crushing daily weight of the sandwich generation. But you can radically change your rules of engagement. The very first step to reclaiming your social survival is to lower the bar for friendship all the way to the floor. You have to aggressively unlearn the hyper-optimization of your adulthood. Stop waiting for a completely free weekend that is never going to come. Stop waiting until your house is perfectly clean to invite someone over. Stop trying to combine a simple catch-up with a highly structured networking dinner or a chaotic kids' playdate. You need to intentionally design friction-free, profoundly unimpressive interactions. Text a friend to just sit on your porch for 20 minutes while the kids stare at a screen. Run a mundane Tuesday errand together. Reclaim the lost art of doing absolutely nothing of value together. Next, you have to create your own micro-third places. If society will no longer provide a neutral, agenda-free zone for you to exist in, you must build it into your physical reality. It is entirely about consistency over quality. A recurring, non-negotiable 15-minute phone call on your commute, where neither of you is allowed to talk about your exhausting to-do lists. That is your new diner booth. Finally, you need to fundamentally reframe how you view the emotional tax. You have been treating friendship as just another open tab in your exhausted brain, another person demanding something from your shattered empathy tank. But true, analog-style connection is not a drain on your battery. It is the only thing that actually plugs you back into the wall. When you stop performing the relentless role of the perfect parent, the perfect employee, and the perfect caretaker, and just allow yourself to be the messy, exhausted, the 1980s kid you still are. Deep down, the isolation breaks. You were wired for real presence. You were built for community. It is time to stop waiting for things to slow down. Stop letting the digital world dictate your boundaries, and finally give yourself permission to just be a friend again. Giving yourself permission to just be a friend again is a radical act of rebellion against a culture that wants you isolated, hyperproductive, and entirely exhausted. But rewriting 2 decades of societal conditioning doesn't happen overnight. It requires a constant reminder to intentionally lower the bar and choose messy reality over sterile perfection. If you are ready to stop performing and want to keep dismantling the psychological traps of modern adulthood, hit the subscribe button. We are building our own agenda-free micro-third place, right here, unlearning the burnout together every single week. And if you are still struggling with the crushing guilt of ignoring your to-do list to actually make time for those connections, click the video on your screen right now, where we break down exactly how to silence the anxiety and finally stop caring about letting people down.
So, are you still coming over for dinner tonight?
Absolutely. I'm bringing that dessert we talked about.